So here is the agreement that we were supposed to make beforehand. We need to be cool. We can't be lame. We need to not fangirl too much. We need to
I think no amount of fangirling is inappropriate, frankly.
But what if he thinks we're lame? We need to look good.
Okay.
Sophisticated.
Okay.
Don't you see his black nails? I am the height of chicness.
When you need some dough, you don't know where to go in this patriarchal capitalist hellscape. Well, here's the sitch. We're gonna help you, sis, because bitches get riches. Bitches get riches. Bitches get riches. Bitches get riches. And so can you.
All right. Okay. We got this.
Okay.
Start speaking, woman.
Okay. Guys, I'm Kitty.
I'm Piggy.
I'm Wolfie, a.k.a. Dane Owens.
Woohoo.
And we are the bitches and bitches get riches.
We're the magically gifted heroes from the spirit realm that the prophecy foretold.
And we are here to bring magic back to all the kingdom and rule with courage and wisdom and, above all, love.
Our time on this planet is limited.
So let's get started.
Woohoo! All right. So you guys might have noticed that today we have a very special guest. You've heard us fangirling about him and his epic fantasy rock music videos before in previous episodes and all over our social media. So we are unbelievably excited to introduce producer, composer, actor, musician, and haver of great hair, Dane Owens.
Hi, ladies.
Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Piggy. Thank you, Kitty. It's a delight to be here, and you're my new favorite people. You need to know that.
You heard it here first.
We loved the review of the new music video, and your excitement for the art overall. I'm very touched, and it means a lot to me. It really does, very sincerely. So thank you for having me.
Oh my
you're so
God.
welcome.
Okay. So
we said no intense fangirling.
I know, just a little. Okay, so I'm going to go into this assuming that we've got some Dane Owens fans who are coming in who have never heard us before, and we have some diehard BGR stans who somehow were up getting a snack every time we've discussed our adoration for Dane Owens. So no shame, everybody needs their Triscuits. So let's discuss just briefly who each of us are for any crossover audiences. So Piggy, you and I are personal finance experts.
Big quotes around experts.
Absolutely. Big bunny ears. We are two friends who met when we were randomly assigned roommates in college. And wouldn't you know it, our freshman year, a little video came out called Shine On Me. And you and I were already getting close. We had a third roommate to make our lives miserable, which really made us war buddies.
It's true. We bonded through adversity.
We were already getting close, but then I think Shine On Me came out and we both
we lost
everybody
our goddamn
watched
minds.
it multiple times, crowded around our tiny stinky dorm room. And so Dane Owens has always been a foundational part of our friendship. And when we were talking about we want to put together this blog and then later this podcast where we teach young people how to manage their personal finances and their early to mid-career transition and also that basic adulting stuff. I think we have so much passion for the youth. One of the things that I really identify with is younger folks have so much spirit and creativity and joy and life has a way of really pounding that out of them. And Dane Owens's music videos to me felt hold on, I'm here with an emergency injection of what you need, which is joyful creativity, and it is at its absolute finest. So that's kind of us. Chris, tell us about you.
Well, that's lovely, ladies. Thank you. And I really appreciate that because I'm really lucky in the team that I have. And I'll certainly share lots and lots about those, my group in a little bit. But there is also a solitary aspect to this. You create things in your own little laboratory, and when you're done, you finally put the tinsel and the bow on it, and then you're ready to release it. And you don't know what's going to happen with it. So you just hope that people see it, respond, that you find your audience is kind of the thing, that people that spark to that particular form of art. And it's been so rewarding to me. Well, I do a lot of things professionally. I've had some good luck creating television shows, mostly in the reality format. And that gave me some resources to begin to do this world, Chris's world, fantasy world. And
The Chris Dane Owens cinematic universe, if you will.
Yes.
And so, and a lot of the people that are in the project are people that I've worked with for years. So it's kind of like I take my little treasured family and I bring them with me. And again, I'll tell you more about that. But so producing some things gave me, gave me the chops to not be afraid of the process, right? I'd never done anything like the Shine video or Lightspeed before, but there was at least an understanding of the mechanics of it. And then, we put it out and that, do you want me to go into this or do you want me to stop? And
Yeah, well, I mean, we would never dream of stopping you from speaking. That is not in our brand.
Absolutely not.
But yeah, no, I mean, this is a finance podcast and we're expected to like ask finance based questions. But I think honestly, a lot of our listeners really like I know we have a lot of young artists who listen to us and a lot of people who are working a day job trying to fund a dream project. And I look at your work and the work that you and your team have put together, and I see that like what you've done is you've funded a dream project. You've, made a dream happen. And I would love to know anything and everything you can tell us about that process.
The Shine On Me budget was about $70,000. And I know that sounds like a lot compared to certain music videos, but it's also not compared to some of the really expensive ones that were being produced on a Michael Jackson level and,
oh, wow.
Those extravagant videos. So what I love is movies and fantasy, and I really wanted to create a piece of art that looked like the trailer to a movie that kind of doesn't exist, but potentially could exist. And I was the hope was that people would connect their own dots of the story, that there was enough structure in it that you could have resonance with the imagery, but conversely also weave your own tale and maybe look at it differently each time you see it. So one of the satisfying things was that a lot of schools have written to me, a lot of teachers at university level and high school level, and they use that video as a writing tool, like a creative writing tool where they go, what does this mean to you? And then the students write it. And I've been sent so many stories over the years.
That is so cool.
To kind of give my
basically
commentary.
like fan fiction of like
CDO
here's what I think
fiction
is going on with the witches and the queen and oh my god, I love it.
So
that's amazing.
That was very special. So that was the budget of that project, and that was self-funded. I was doing well with the television stuff at that time, and I really believe in believing in oneself, and that you have to show the world oftentimes what you're capable of. And for me as an artist, this was an absolute must. I needed to do this on the very deepest core level, put this out there.
Of course, yeah.
Because my album was done and I really wanted to get into the video version of it, which is a whole life of its own, isn't it? Because if you just listen to the songs, you have your own interpretation from an audio standpoint, but when you add the visuals, it becomes a completely different thing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Now, this is the album Bluestone. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Which is fantastic.
Thank you.
Guys, if you have not listened
Highly
to Bluestone,
recommended.
go stream it. You're welcome. And now I feel like this is kind of a natural point for me to say, Piggy, any music nerdery that you would like to go on ahead and I'm just going to let you do your thing.
Oh, yeah, this is true. So I am also not a professional, but I am also a musician.
Neat.
I play guitar and I sing. So one of the things I appreciate about the music videos, especially the most recent one, Do You Believe in Miracles, is you have those wide shots where I can tell what chords you're playing by looking at the guitar. So thank you for helping me learn to play your songs myself.
Okay, good. The chord structure is actually pretty simple on that one, but there's a lot of counterpoint overlays with the guitar is doing.
Okay.
Right? But it's not a very complex song. I think you'll be able to find it. And if you need me to send you the chords, I'm happy to do that.
Would
so
you really?
giving.
I would love that.
And
I would love that.
I put the Gretsch up here for you ladies because you
yeah. Is that a semi-hollow body?
Yeah,
I can't
it has,
quite say. Okay,
it has chambers. This whole guitar weighs like almost barely 7 pounds. It's very light.
Yeah.
And it's got big kind of chambers that make it more hollow and much lighter to throw around. But it has a really good
I
sound.
love that.
It's a wonderful instrument. I got that in 2006. I first saw it in Japan, and I'm really inspired by fantasy movies, as you know, and one of my favorites is The Wizard of Oz. And so this is an homage to the Emerald City.
Oh my God, the emerald green. I love that.
I love
and
it.
for those who are just listening instead of watching, what we are looking at is a beautiful emerald green with gold pickups, electric guitar, semi-hollow body.
That's
and
sparkling.
it is
Sparkling
sparkling.
it is.
It's called
Yes.
a Gretsch Sparklejet, is what his name is.
Oh
Gretsch
my God.
Sparklejet.
I
Do you have like
adore
a pet
it.
name for it?
No, I don't. I mean, I just call it my jet half the time.
Oh, okay. I like that. Awesome. Well, so you've mentioned fantasy movies a couple of times. And
Yeah.
one of the things, I mean, we're both a couple of big fat fantasy nerds. So one of the things we wanted to ask you is like, what are your favorite fantasy movies and books? What inspired you? Or did you have any influences from other fantasy media?
A lot. I mean, I think that, I guess you could say I'm kind of an inspiration junkie in that my attention can get magnetized from art, whether it's music or visual art. And I love movies. Prior to the pandemic, my girlfriend and I would literally go to two movies a week in the theater every week, week in, week out.
I love it.
And since I was a little kid, I've been at least seeing one movie in the theater every week. So for me, I would say, of course, The Wizard of Oz would be constant inspiration. I love Raiders of the Lost Ark, the adventure, the fantasy, the spirituality.
I was wondering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love The Princess Bride and
That's my
humor.
favorite.
Isn't it great? It's just so charming.
It's so charming. Yes.
It's one of those films that like when it's on the air, I'm like, oh, I was doing something else, but now I seem to be watching The Princess Bride. It's pretty much that and The Shawshank Redemption. If it's on, I'm like, I guess I'm watching.
Obviously, I'm watching it. I think I have every line of dialogue memorized.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
That's really great. So let's see what else. I love the movie Field of Dreams, which I would call it in the sci-fi genre.
Yes.
And I know you ladies like the song Lightspeed. There's a lyric about Field of Dreams in there, which to me
is there?
Yeah.
A field of dreams.
Oh my God, yes!
I love it.
God.
I love it.
That's
so
amazing.
I was actually just listening to an interview with the comic book author Alan Moore, and one of the things he said was, if you want to write, read books, read great books, read good books, but also read terrible books. There's nothing that galvanizes your creativity more than reading a really bad book and thinking, well, this guy, I could write better than him. Kind of on the same question. Is there anything that you're like, this is bad, this is not good? I'm not like recommending that people go out and consume this, but that you're just like, but there's ideas in here that I love. Any media like that you're like, I'm not going to say this is good, but it moves me.
There's always something about, growing up in Hollywood and seeing as many films, you do tend to, and obviously knowing people that work on films, you do tend to look at things with a redeemer's eye, meaning even if everybody's kind of trashing the piece of art and they don't connect with it, you always try to find something about it that you appreciate, whether it's performances, whether it's cinematography, whether it's the score, whether it's the pacing and the editing, the look, just the color, the look of the film. So I'm big on that. I tend to see things, maybe not recommending them, but going like, well, I got something out of it all the time. Looking at it with that, with kind of a kindness, if you will, towards all the people that worked really hard to create it.
So speaking on Piggy's behalf, I think, going into art school, we were both feeling like the tension of the creative and the will to imagine very freely, as opposed to the sort of like financial and the realistic of like, well, it needs to be in budget and it needs to be doable and you need to be realistic about your aspirations. And I think like both of us have really struggled throughout our lives, especially when we were in our kind of like late teens and 20s, thinking about like, am I a sellout if I take these projects that pay me well but don't artistically fulfill me if I then go out and create my own works. And I know, Piggy, for you, like, am I, turning my back on my gifts with music if that's not like my central career? But also, if I make it my central career, then isn't that going to like leech the
Suck
joy
out
of
of it.
creating
Yeah.
out of me? So there's kind of like a tension between the creative spirit and the financial spirit. And how is that something that you have encountered and dealt with throughout your career?
For sure. I feel really strongly about that. It's that kind of notion of you do the things you have to do in order to do the things you want to do. And a lot of times the things you want to do require funding. And so it's an important mission to set out that course of, well, look, I've got to pay my bills. I have things, the world is expensive and
I gotta eat.
I got to eat.
Got rent to pay.
That's right. And I want to uplift other people's lives if I can as well. And so all that takes money. And then but I really want to do this other thing too. And so I'm big on we'll call it the A plan and the B plan of life, and you work very hard on both. There's no laziness on either track because there can't be. Sometimes maybe your B plan is all that is ever achieved, but that's very satisfying too, if you choose well and you stay on course. So I'm really an advocate for that because art can be expensive, just the gear to buy, depending on what you want to create. I mean, if you're an oil painter, all those supplies are expensive. And if you want to do this kind of stuff and shoot movies and, make records, nothing is cheap. Even though what I love about our era that we're in is that the democratization of all of this, that you can put your own
100%.
album out from your living room. You can make your own music videos. They certainly don't have to be fancy like mine. They can be very moving and simple and really touch people because the art translates through the medium.
Through the medium, yeah. I mean, you can record a podcast from your home while your
love
family is, shuffled into another room and threatened with bodily harm to be quiet. So
And if we were to
all your dogs bribed with many, many chew toys to
be quiet.
If we were to show people what we're doing, what you ladies are doing and what this art is, and that we were able to do it ourselves to people 50 years ago or 70 years ago, they think that's impossible. That's not, you have a television studio, you can reach millions of people. So it's very special. And I think it's something to be embraced and to be encouraged in a lot of people. It's like, hey, put out your art, do the best you can always. Know that what you do now may not be as good as what you do later, but you have to start somewhere. And it's that notion of, how do I know a thing is beautiful unless it has form? We've got all this beauty inside of us, all of this beauty inside of each of us. But unless we put it into form, it doesn't reach anybody. It stays inside of us.
I love that.
I'll put
overwhelmed.
that on a t-shirt. And
Yes, there's beauty
credit
inside
myself.
of us. So something you said really moved me because I think it definitely comes to the core of what we do at Bitches Get Riches as well, which is you said, you have to, even if you fund your art, you have to try and lift other people up as you do that as well.
Right.
I would love it if you could tell us a little bit about, how you have used your art and your creative process to lift others up as well.
Well, I mean, like I said, you create. So first it started with the Shine on Me music video, and wonderful and surprising things happened with that. We put it out on YouTube, and I remember looking at one point and it's like, oh, we've got our first 1,000 views. That's so neat. I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't done with my record. And then all of a sudden it was getting like 15, 20,000 views a week. And I got reach outs from television shows. Then it just kind of took off on its own. And the idea is that your art can speak for you in your absence. And so when people tell me how much the art has meant to them, that's always very rewarding because you hope it does. It was made to speak to people. Everything I've been doing is made to speak to people, and I'm hoping that it finds its audience, and I hope that the film does too. We work so hard on this, and I know we're going to get to that in a second, but so I always get fed emotionally when I hear that the work has meant something to people.
We talked about the difficulty of like being self-funded and finding the money to really prioritize what it takes to invest in yourself creatively. But also, I think there's a major barrier that I would identify is true with myself, probably with you, Piggy, and with a lot of our readers, which is perfectionism.
Yes.
And this idea that, like, if I can't do something perfectly to a super, super, super high standard, then I don't want to do it at all. And I'm never going to try because I am kind of convinced that I can't do it, or I can't do it the way that it looks in my head. So can you talk a little bit about, like, do you identify with having that kind of demon of perfectionism within you? And how have you learned to manage that kind of feeling of, like, wanting to portray a vision, being very creatively in control of what you're producing and wanting to meet a standard, but also, like, better out than in?
Right. No, it's a really important discussion because one never wants to get paralyzed in their process, right? You want to see it through. And so the idea is, I've got an idea. I'm not exactly sure I can turn what I'm visualizing into reality, but maybe what happens in that process too is it doesn't look exactly like what I thought, but I like it. I'm proud of that. I feel like it communicates something for the time, because you'll never achieve perfection. And even if you were to talk to, master filmmakers like Steven Spielberg or something, they'd probably go, that shot bugs me, or the CG at the time was this, now it's this. And maybe there's even a cringe factor. I mean, I had heard that George Lucas wasn't entirely happy with Star Wars, which is one of the greatest movies ever made. Right. So I think it does come with the process, but if you allow yourself permission to do it and know that you'll learn and you'll grow from it, that's as good as it gets. And just do your best, put your extra effort into it. You cannot be lazy in this process, that's for sure.
I love that. I love that. So for our dedicated listeners, all of this has been leading to something. All of the music videos and the albums have been leading to something. And that is the feature film Empire Queen. And can you give us, like, a little bit of a preview of the movie? For sure. And then we'll see some clips.
Okay. So when this initially became popular, that project, an agent, a CIA agent, asked me out to lunch and said, "This is really neat what you guys are doing. Would you be interested in doing a movie?" And I said, "Well, yeah, that would be great, but movies cost a lot of money." I mean, even Shine on Me was shot on 35 millimeter film back then. It wasn't digital.
Oh my gosh.
It looked really good. All right. As a film nerd, it looked really good. Continue on.
So then some years go by, and then the digital arena starts to catch up, and you can buy affordable gear and you can edit at home. And so then Lightspeed came out, and that was received wonderfully, and people enjoyed the continuation of the story. And it was like, gosh, could we really do this? So in come my partners, right? I've got a wonderful partner in my buddy Jason Schultz. He's one of the co-stars in the film. He co-wrote it with me. He co-directs it with me, and he co-produces it with me. So we are...
he's quite the looker. You can tell him that from me.
Oh, I'll tell him.
Is he the pirate?
He's the captain.
He's the pirate?
Yeah.
Captain.
He plays Captain Montgomery Sterling. And so the challenge was how to take nonverbal imagery and go, well, what's the story that we want to tell? And can we tell that story?
Yeah.
Right. So initially we have a wonderful executive producer in Kiki Coral. Kiki was and is one of the film's true guardian angels, because she was able to secure the funding for our first big shoot. And our first big shoot was in Portland. So it's, it looks like Middle Earth there. And
so green and lush.
And CL Post, who's our wonderful star in the film, and she's the redhead in all the music videos. And
we love her.
Adorable, beautiful redhead.
And she's so talented. And the thing was, the idea of, like, well, how do we turn nonverbal into verbal, and can everybody act? Right? I don't know. Well, CL's a wonderful actress. She's very funny. And we tried to focus on that so that the film is joyful and humorous. And again, I think Princess Bride or Harry Potter humor is kind of the direction we were heading.
Yeah.
Yes, I absolutely get veins of Princess Bride just from the clips. And it was, I mean, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but, like, I was so surprised by that, because there are some scenes in the music videos that are, like, they're very dark, they're very dramatic. And the fact that there's, like, humor coming through when you add dialogue, I'm like, oh, Oh my goodness, this adds like a whole other dimension that is, I feel, necessary to, the fantasy genre, especially in things like The Princess Bride, even in Lord of the Rings. Like, you have to have that humor
right?
in darkness.
We love,
Gotta have potatoes.
That's
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
And we love, Guardians of the Galaxy is fun. I love that first Jumanji with the Jumanji film. It's so good.
Yes.
Great movie.
Right?
Great movie.
It's fun. It's adventurous. So we've got, so then the idea is CL on board? Will she be Ara Winter, the lead? And we kind of build the movie around her. And she's like, yes, please, let's go.
Nice.
And then Mary Elise Hayden, who is one of the witch queens in the first two music videos, is our central queen.
It's so joyful to think about like the sense of community that comes when you put yourself out there and you say like, I have a vision and I'm just going to like attract people who can help me execute this vision.
Yes.
Very much so. And that was certainly this story, which was a family already because we've been working on the music videos. And then it was, hey, let's try to do a movie. And we've shot for 100 days, which is not an independent, that's kind of studio level commitment. We just kept going. And the film did get bigger. I think initially the vision was, with the initial investment that Kiki was able to secure, was we shot all of our Portland footage. We started to build the scenes. And we first of all said, I think we can do this. I think this might be good. And it can be, what is my character? How do I speak? What is my dialogue? What is the tone? So those are all fine tunings that needed to take place that I think once we got our groove, we stuck with it. And I think the tone is consistent throughout, which I'm very happy about. And then we had to have our Lord Voss character, which is played by Jano Janosek. And Jano's been a buddy. We're in a band together as well. And he's this great 6'4" guy, and with his boots on, he's 6'6". And, he's very scary and ominous. And he did a wonderful job. And so we had our core cast, right, that were basically in the music videos. We did recast the two sisters. And we have Desi Mitchison, who's one of the queens, and we have Emra Bell, who's the other one, and we get to know them through magic mirrors in the movie. They're in their respective kingdoms. And then it was game on. And so we shot, as I said, 100 days. We shot out at sea. We shot in the snow. We went to the forest. We went to the desert. We shot underwater.
Lord.
We just kept shooting.
Planes, trains, and automobiles.
Right.
Oh my God.
I love it.
And so, and then building it, because it is a Lord of the Rings kind of movie in that it's a trekking adventure. And there's 4 scary caves where we have to go get some relics. The big goal in the film is to get the Sovereign Wand, which is a very powerful instrument of magic. That in the right hands, you can basically rule a kingdom. And there is a prophecy about somebody. The overarching theory or theme of the film is let there be magic for everyone. In that the
democratization again. Yeah.
Everybody should know magic and everybody should be able to do it. And magic in our realm is not just parlor tricks. It's you can heal with magic. We see Ara healing somebody. You can teleport with magic. You can defend yourself with magic. So it's really kind of like survival tools that should be available to people. And what's beyond it, meaning it's kind of from the spirit, this magic. So what else can be created with it? It's unlimited. So
Dane Owens said, seize the means of production. I love it.
I'm absolutely in love with this because so we were about 13 years old when the first Harry Potter book came out, just to like fully date us for both ends of the spectrum of people
were
who
11.
listen to this. Round parts. And so we really were the correct age to grow up with that very, kind of cultural touchstone fantasy literature. Yeah. And absolutely the biggest disappointment to me was I really thought this is building to a bigger question about so we're gonna come to the conclusion that it's really weird and messed up that Muggles just live their lives with no knowledge of all the possibilities in the world, and that wizards kind of are segregated away and they hoard this magic to themselves, and they both groups have this fear and mythology that's very negative around each other, and we're going to fix that, right? And then we get to the epilogue, and in fact, no.
Right.
Nothing
We're
changes.
going to maintain the status quo. And reading that as then, when the final book came out, being in college, was such a disappointment. I was like, this is such a missed opportunity. So I am over the literal moon to hear you say that, like, kind of the takeaway of this is like that magic should be for everyone. Magic, even though, some people may be more gifted in some ways, it's not that some people deserve magic and some people don't. I'm thrilled.
That's
oh
lovely.
My goodness.
And they say they say in publishing school that a good story requires change. Like, change is the key element to any good story. So the fact that, like, your whole story here is going in and saying, like, we have a world that is not fair in this way, that, magic is hoarded, it's segregated, to use Kitty's word, and we have this opportunity to release it for everyone to use. Like, that's kind of beautiful, especially, like, again, like the generation that grew up with Occupy Wall Street as we were leaving college.
That's right. There's much deeper resonance, isn't it, to that theme?
Yeah.
And I think we all really spark to that notion that let's uplift everybody, because you cannot just lift up a few. And so the idea is, the royals oppress this process. They want to keep it all to themselves. And, there's a line about keep their heels on the necks of the peasantry and just keep magic for themselves. And the idea is, let's change that. Let's flip that story. And so my character and Jay's character are on the wrong side initially. It's why even in the poster, I'm kind of on the dark side. Because
you get a heel face turn.
I do. I'm an enforcer in that realm, thinking that must be correct, that is the way things are, and that's appropriate. And maybe magic people would get hurt. They would hurt themselves with it. So perhaps we should allow only the royals to use it. But then I, accidentally meet Ara. She's practicing magic one day with her pet mouse, and she does a wand blast and knocks me off my horse. And I'm asking her, what was that thing? And it was her. And so we don't really like each other at first.
I love it. It's a magical meet cute.
Right.
Enemies to friends to lovers.
That's
my
right.
favorite.
Should we watch that clip?
Sure,
By
you
the
wanna
way?
see
Do we
that?
have
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah.
Oh, my
Ducky,
goodness.
roll the tape.
Thanks, Ducky.
What in the world was that fiery thing that flew in front of me and nearly killed me?
Well, I've no idea what you mean, my lord. The forest is full of flying creatures and such. Elsewhere!
Okay, so that is
That
the
was so
adorable,
cute.
like,
She's so
funny dialogue.
You're completely
We're looking at-
right. She's so
Yeah.
funny. She's very good
She's
at
got
the,
some
like,
sass.
flashing eyes. Like, could be anything. Who knows?
Could be anything. Yeah.
CL has this thing we call them micro expressions. They're so tiny, but the camera picks them up. They're just a little raise of an eyebrow or a little tweak of a brow or the thing, and they just communicate volumes. It's really, she's very expressive and she's very gifted. And again, we got lucky because she was cast. We don't do a lot of acting in the two music videos, right? Just a little bit, but you're kind of stuck with what you can express in these imagery, and it goes really fast, right? These images,
right?
So with this is
Action-packed is how I would describe the videos. Yeah.
So this is marinated, played out dialogue scenes. And so, we feel so fortunate that CL and Mary are our two leads, and we tried to build the world around them. And, with having those different characters, we rotate story quite a bit. So we're moving quite often to whether it's Jay's storyline, mine with CL, Mary's storyline. And so that, I think it makes for an entertaining film, that kind of juggling of stories.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and in that way, it is very Lord of the Ringsian, right? Because we have, you've got your party that, or to use D&D terms, you've got your party that starts together, and then, the party splinters, or like the action's going on in different places.
That's right.
And I think that adds just like to the epic fantasy nature of it.
I have to mention, ladies, at this point, there's a character in this film that's not a person, and it's our score. We got so lucky. Composer Nicholas Repetto actually found me. We had put up a couple things on IMDb, like imagery, of the thing. And of course, the music videos are out there. And he said, I feel like I need to get involved in this. And he was local. And so we had some lunches and we started talking music. And I love cinema music. I love it. John Williams being one of my favorites. And we had so much in common. So he said, is there a scene or two that I could, kind of temp out? And so we gave him some structure and it was like, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. So we have a symphony orchestra.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's so great.
And a live choir and a horn section. And it's 2 hours plus of music that he wrote. It's packed with music because this kind of film you do that with, right? You really, everything has an underscore and everything's pushed up. And I know some people don't care for that style, but I love that style.
And you're a professional musician and songwriter yourself. And the epic story of Empire Queen began with literally music videos. I would be shocked if there wasn't amazing music in this. Like I'm not surprised at all that you guys put that kind of care and detail into it. I just love the idea that he came to you,
He did. Go ahead.
Well, this kind of makes me want to pull out something, which is that again, kind of thinking about that perfectionist streak and, kind of the impulse to keep your music inside where it is safe and warm and protected because it will never be criticized by anyone. But at the same time, if you do that, you will never find the allies that you need. I think right. for Piggy and I, one of the biggest challenges we ran into as business owners was actually finding people who understood our voice, who understood our vision for what we wanted to be, which was extraordinarily unprofessional at all times, at all costs. And kind of taking the leap to trust other people in that process. I think, film is such an interesting medium because no one can make a film alone. Mm-hmm. No one can make a film on their own. Yeah. And the more help you have, usually, the better it's going to look, but it requires a high degree of trust.
That's right.
How is that something that you would say you've learned to develop? Did you have any maybe especially when you were younger, control issues of I have a vision for how this should be, and maybe I should do all the music, and maybe I should do all of this and all of that, and learning to kind of let go? Or was that easier for you?
Well, maybe other people would have a different interpretation of that towards me than I do. But I feel as though my tendency
Good coverage.
Right? Well, my tendency is to nurture the process, try to encourage people to be to have fun, to enjoy the process, to get involved, and that their creativity matters, their input matters. There were so many examples of on the set when we're filming a scene, when we've got basically what's written, then it's well, let's play with this for a second. And then input's coming from different people. It's oh, that's better. Or let's see what that looks like in the edit bay, and it is better. Or, one of the other pillars, I look at our movie in terms of having pillars, and the pillars are people. Nick is a pillar. Jay Schultz is a pillar. Kiki Coral's a pillar. So we have, and Jennifer Barlow is a producer and editor on this film. And I've done 25 projects with Jen. She's my go-to editor. And she probably is tired of me being in the bay because I'm always in the bay with her. But, I love editing so much. I love putting things together.
So I went to film school for editing. So you're really speaking my language.
Oh my gosh.
And praising
and I
your
went
editor.
To publishing school for editing books. So we're all on the same page.
Right.
We are editing stands
and
for
you
sure.
Can make a scene or ruin a scene in the edit bay.
Absolutely. So I've heard that the original cut of Star Wars was absolutely unwatchable. And then George Lucas's wife was like, shh, honey, hold on. Right. Get out. I will recut this.
And then they brought other editors in as well on that film. Yeah. Actually, some other people came in and they did their own inventions and their own sense of timing and pace and what drives things. So
trusting that collaborative process is key to achieving that kind of lightning in a bottle, that greatness that you can't achieve on your own.
I would say that I have tremendous respect for every member of my team, and their input is valuable. Their contribution matters, and their acknowledging it matters too. So within that process, it's obviously it's Chris's fantasy world in a lot of ways, because it's all started with this thing in my head. But then it's like, oh, well, in order to make a movie, everybody has to be involved. They really do. And so I'm so grateful. The pillars that we have are significant. I would love to make another movie with my pillars. And I'm hoping we get to do that. I'm hoping that's where this goes, because we've got, it's designed to be a trilogy of movies. I don't know if we'll be fortunate enough for that, but if we are, I want to take my gang with me.
I
That
will
would be
watch
amazing.
all
Yes.
3. I'll watch 9, split them into however
split
many
them into
I will
9.
be there.
Well, so speaking of your collaborators, and should we watch a clip
Let's
of
do another
the
clip.
composer?
That's so good.
And again, to your point about speaking of collaborators, thank you, Ducky.
Ducky
Yes,
rules.
thank you, Ducky.
Yes, thank you.
She's the best.
All right, roll the tape.
My dear, courage won't stop me from ending your little rebellion.
The rebellion has just begun.
Ugh, you had me
God.
at naval battle. Like, that's amazing.
I think that's one of the things that, like, obviously we love everything about, like, Shine On Me and Lightspeed, but, like, the naval battles were up there. They were very high up there.
Thank you. We as mentioned, we shot on a ship. We
So cool.
We also, we didn't blow up cannons, unfortunately, so that is a little bit of CG. But those guys were so important in the finale. They really kind of come to the rescue, and they're part of that great triangulated action where they're off at sea, kind of narrating what they see through the spyglass and going, "This is what's happening over here, and this is what's happening over here, and we've got to help these people over here." And so they're actually causing mayhem on the lands, and trying to thwart some of the evil queen's efforts to stop us from doing what we need to do, which is get that sovereign wand.
Perfect.
That's beautiful.
I love one of my absolute all-time favorite films is The Fugitive.
Yeah.
A very underrated film in its
such a
time
good
that
movie.
has gotten and it's gotten the prestige that it deserves
Yes.
now many years later on, but that is kind of a masterful example of like cross-cutting editing where what every character knows. And so you can see something and immediately know the significance of it, whereas I think a very unsuccessful action sequence in a film, or especially like the big battle sequences that have kind of been shoehorned into a lot of films where they don't belong, is kind of watching in kind of a blur of like, I'm so overwhelmed by all the action that's going on that I couldn't tell you what is the significance. Like, who knows what? Where is everyone? Are they half an hour away from each other? Are they 30 seconds away from each other? It's a lot. So I love like kind of having different groups to follow, but it's nice and tight. Like, all the characters and what everybody wants out of a scene.
Thanks, Kitty. I appreciate that. And I feel like that was our real concerted effort, was to make sure that all of those storylines in the finale all make sense in terms of what each group's agenda is, what their goals are, and how, when it either goes right or wrong, you're feeling for that at each pace. And Jen was wonderful at splitting that up, because I might have gone like, "Oh no, that's really cool. Let's let it run long." And she's like, "No, let's cut it in 2, and it'll be even more fun to go back to." And she was right.
Nice.
Nice.
Editors are always right.
I love that.
It's my personal opinion, totally unbiased.
Sure. Yeah. Chris, I wanted to ask, this was clearly a long time in the making.
Yeah.
We worked from Shine On Me to the release of Empire Queen, like years have gone by. So, how do you keep from experiencing creative fatigue, for lack of a better term? How do you keep your optimism up,
sustaining that long-term creative project,
because you're not
sustaining enthusiasm.
Because you're not like getting like the likes and the follows and the views on YouTube like every second. Like, there are long periods of time between releases where like no one's giving positive feedback, no one's seeing what you're up to. Like, how do you get through those dark moments and just keep the optimism and the enthusiasm up for
it's a great question, because I think it's something that everyone would struggle with, right? How do you do a long-term project and keep pushing and keep going and stay active? And I think that notion of, once again, being like an inspiration junkie is very true for me. I get so much energy from art. I get so much from it that it fuels my imagination in such a way and fuels my motivation to go, I want to do that, or I want to finish that, or I want to be in that world. When it first started as a music video, that was easier because that was just a consolidated thing. I'm putting out an album. I need a music video for it. Even though that took 6 months to make, and Lightspeed actually took 1 year to make. So I'm used to this idea of germinating and pushing and have things take a while. And this movie took years to make. You know, the pandemic was, as it was for so many films at this particular period in time, a real setback for us.
I bet.
But, you know, we became triumphant at the end and were able to finish it. And I guess having partners that are all equally motivated and kind of have skin in the game really helps, because if you do feel down, they kind of push you along in your road to the conclusion. So I would say great partners, shared vision, and find your sources of inspiration wherever you can. And for me, sometimes that just feels like living your life, where something can come out of left field and go, oh, wow, I'm really moved by that. That means a lot to me. And now I'm invigorated to go on.
I love that.
I really love that. I guess I'm full of quotes from famous animators and illustrators today. But one of my favorite pieces of advice that, like what you just said, really, really resonated with it, Chris, was from Chuck Jones, who is an absolutely genre-defining, excellent illustrator from the sort of golden age of, like, Looney Tunes sort of animation. And he pretty famously said to his own staff, how do you get inspiration? You go out and you consume. You have to go to the ballet if you want to come up with, the very famous short What's Opera doc. You have to go out and watch opera. You have to go out and listen to jazz. You have to go and watch movies even if you don't love them, and come back with something from it. You just have to go out there and consume the art that you want to create. And so I love that advice for, like, our readers who are, so many of them are, like, young and have a creative spirit that life hasn't managed to smush out of them yet.
That's right, sure.
Absolutely. And, like, going out there and, like, consuming the art that you want to make, getting inspiration from a wild variety of sources. I would say I'm someone who thinks I have a strong idea of what I like and what I don't like. And if you had told me you're going to love this music video that's got, like, every single fantasy cliche, like, smushed into one, and you're going to love it. And I would be like, no, I'm very sophisticated. I like very complex and nuanced things have never been done before in art. I don't like tropes a bit. That is what I would have described as myself. And then seeing your videos, I was just, like, completely energized and blown away, and was like, I couldn't have been more wrong about what it is that, like, fuels my own fire.
Yes. It really fuels the fire is a great way to put it, because Chris's work really it unlocks something, that childlike wonder that we all think we need to give up on.
Uncritical. I think unconcerned with my favorite thing about, I'm not going to gush, but my favorite thing about your videos, which I think I said in our reaction video to the newest one, was that, like, I am going to put into this things that I like, and I'm not going to stop and say, like, well, is this realistic enough? Is this, like, dramatic enough? And I think especially around the time that we watched Shine on Me, we were in art school. And at the time, this was, like, the mid 2000s, where very much the style was super, super gritty. Make everything gray and brown. Make it very
the Dark Knight was coming out.
And depressing, and that's how you will get kind of prestige and credit and clout within, your industry. Basically, the darker the better, the grittier the better. And if for me, it resulted in a real feeling of like limitation, that I can't tell a hopeful story. I can't tell a funny story. I have to like make it something very, very gritty and very depressing in order for it to be viewed positively by the people who I think I want praise and recommendation from. So I think like it was a real, like, this is not me just like being too much of a fangirl, but it was a real turning point for me. I was like, yeah, I am. Let's be real. I have my priorities straight. I'm a big fangirl, but I really loved and valued seeing something that came from a place of, I love this, so I'm putting it in. This resonates with me, so I'm putting it in. And I'm not going to stop and say, oh, is this necessarily like dark and gritty and prestige and realistic? And I think it flew in the face of what at the time was a very common genre convention against fantasy and against kind of more imaginative works, which I think, knock on computer, I think has kind of moved away. I think we're starting to embrace that slightly more joyful interpretation again. I
appreciate that, Kitty, a lot. And I feel like some of the confirmations I got back when we put out Shine on Me in particular, from that certain people had receptors within their souls or their minds that it went right to people. It communicated to them. The show 30 Rock, the Tina Fey and all those writers, one of their assistants wrote to me and said, they watch this video every time they get stuck in their creation of their show. Would you please send signed albums and videos and photographs to them?
I love that.
And then,
that makes complete sense to me.
And I also went to go visit the all the animators at Family Guy, because they were really big fans of it. And I met Seth MacFarlane, and they took me out to dinner because that art spoke to them in that kind of way. I think that there's just a resonance that comes. And for me, even prior to doing this, I started watching a lot of fairy tales, even foreign tales, not even in English. There was something about fairy tales that really connected with my spirit at that time, and that I wanted to make this as a fairy tale. Hands down. And I believe in that method of communicating, that there's morality. There's, you can kind of rise above the politics of your era in a way and speak in terms of resonance and ideals, without getting mired in this side or that side. So for me, that was part of why I put this out, was, it was really, there was something deep inside that needed to do this. And I was determined to not stop until I got it the way I wanted it to be.
Incredible.
I'm in love with you, hearing you describing this process, because that work that you put in, like, I really think it shows. Like, it came through very clearly to me.
Absolutely.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's really important, is and that's for anybody that's doing a project. Obviously you can do something so it never sees the light of day, because it's not quite done. So there is a button or a switch that you have to switch off and go. And I will tell you something, to me, in the creation of our film, the standard was, is it good enough? It has to be there, because you can't say, is it perfect? Because things will never be perfect. But is that visual effect good enough? Is that performance good enough? Is that scene good enough to then connect to the next one? So that's kind of a mantra for me. Is it good enough? And I think that all of us on our group have high standards. And so the idea is like, yeah, that's good enough. Great. Moving on. Perfect. Because you can't get stuck in things, because you will get paralyzed, and that doesn't serve anybody.
Yeah.
I love that. So kind of on that theme, one of the questions that I wanted to ask you was, like, obviously, in the course of making these music videos, you spent money on some things, and you have to make a choice as you're going through this process. You have a budget to work with, and some things you can invest a lot in. Sometimes it's like, how can we do this with duct tape? How can we sell this with like the bare minimum?
That's right.
And what would you say? Is there something you can point to that you are like, I am so glad we spent what we spent on this, because it was worth every penny versus I invested a lot into this and I'm like, if I could do it again, it wasn't worth that investment.
Sure. And I think you'll think it's funny what I'm about to say with is worth the investment. After every one of our 100 days of filming, we always went out to a really nice dinner together, the whole team. And that was
actually, I love that.
Fun to recount the day. It was fun to feel the camaraderie, the joint mission that we all had. Just to celebrate each other, this group of people at this particular point in time making this piece of art, all in it for the long haul. So to me, you don't see that on screen, not a frame of it, right? That's dinner, but it was really important and really kind of cherished among all of us. Where are we going to dinner tonight? Plus, these days are hard. We're schlepping stuff over mountains, and
yes,
it's like
their crew, they deserved
you
it.
burn like 800 calories a minute.
You do. They're exhausting. And we didn't have a giant crew. Go ahead.
I would argue you did see it on screen because that camaraderie that you built over those dinners and the chemistry, it absolutely shows. Yeah.
So that's my really, really important thing. And the producers, the talent, anybody that worked on the show that day is coming to a really nice dinner. And, we're taking hours in this dinner and we're talking and we're just enjoying it. There's photographs and, you're kind of sitting there like exhausted from a really hard day that started probably at 5 a.m. But at the same time, you're also loving it. You know what I mean? Then the other part is, what was the question, ladies? It was the money that...
Something you spent money on, but then did not
regret
it. Yeah.
I will say there's not much of that because it was, we didn't have a giant studio budget. We had a good sized budget for sure. And I can't reveal that just yet because we're in the process of shopping the movie, but I'm sure at some point that will come out. But we, I will say this, in the CG process, we had a philosophy of, look, we're not Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings. We can't spend $1 million on a bunch of dragons.
Yeah.
We can't even spend anything hardly. So the idea is,
no dragon budget.
Right. A tiny, tiny, tiny dragon budget. But it has to be good enough. So we have to make it short and sweet. Yeah. So the magic and the visual effects are very short. That I think helps you see it and your imagination fills in the blank, but you don't study it too long. Because there's always this example of like, the Columbia TriStar logo in the 80s was a beautiful Pegasus with animated wings. They're cartoon wings.
Yes.
And at the height of of that era, the head of the studio said, looks great. I love it. But now you look back at it and go, well, it looks like cartoon wings.
You can see that it's kind of rotoscoped and it doesn't look as polished, but
it shows
seeing that logo come up fills me with nostalgia. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to see a great movie.
That's right. So, but the idea is that no matter what we're doing, there'll be a point with which it looks a little bit dated. So for our visual effects, it was, let's get in and out, make it as quick as possible.
Nice.
and hopefully that sells it enough. I'm certainly proud of it, but you could have had more money in that category easily because that's what they do at the big movies. They just spend so much money on that.
I know, Piggy, this is important for you. Bigger dragon budget.
Yeah, bigger dragon budget, A. But B, I honestly think that like if the writing and the dedication of the cast and crew is there, like you can have a budget of $1 and it'll still be a great story on the screen.
These days, there's plugins and programs and all these things that people are wizards in their living rooms. So I really believe in our era along those lines. I really do. It's a remarkable time to be alive and to have your own channel. It's basically, you have a television network, which is extraordinary.
So I think one of the things that a lot of our listeners and readers deal with is a pressure to specialize, that you should choose a career. When you're 17, you should go to a college to study that career as a major. You should stick with that forever and ever. And if you ever deviate from that path, congratulations, you failed. That kind of hyper specialization is its own kind of like intense pressure. But I think one of the things that's so fascinating to me about your career is that you are a musician and you're also a producer for things that aren't like epic fantasy music videos, and kind of how you bring the things that would pay the bills in a day job capacity versus fill your well in a creative capacity. And you kind of synthesize those together into, a skill set that allows you to build something that you never would have built if you didn't kind of pursue everything all at once. So I'd love to hear you talk a bit about kind of like the virtues of being a generalist and keeping things as a hobby versus making everything monetized in a career.
For sure. And I will add that I've also held a corporate position for a long time as well.
Oh, you poor thing.
Yeah. So, no, I'm so grateful for everything. Yeah, I'm grateful for everything. I've been so lucky, so very fortunate in the path that I've chosen, in that I've been able to, live my zeal and express myself creatively. So again, it's that notion of your A plan, your B plan, and let's put a C plan in there. And you have to take care of yourself. It's so difficult, the world we live in at this time. We have insurance to take care of, we have bills to pay, we have all the things that matter to us that we cannot let slide. So how is there time, energy, momentum to do your other plans? Well, one thing for sure is don't put a time agenda on we'll call it your dream. That's a big mistake. Big mistake, in my opinion. Because
love that.
It has to flow, and it has to be within what the universe provides. It's one of the reasons why I've taken so long to do some of these projects, is because the doors weren't open. The doors are open now for this project and hopefully others. But even if this is what we achieve, that this film is really important to all of us and very rewarding. So again, it's, to me, and not to sound preachy, because everybody's got their own rhythm and groove, but I like the idea of wearing lots of hats. You take everything seriously. But I will say this, when you have your dream as your giant, chalice in the sky, that you see it in your mind's eye all the time, and you know you're going to get there, whether it's write your first screenplay, produce your first movie, write your first book, whatever it is. And it doesn't even have to be that creative endeavor. It can be start your own, laundromat. It could be, I want to own properties. It can be anything. That dream, that vision can get you up in the morning. It can make the sorrow of life so much sweeter and easier to get through. So I'm such a big believer on have those things, and you have to look within yourself for them, don't you? You have to go, what do I want? What interests me? What is my soul asking for? And how do I bring that into my life? So I don't know if I answered the question, but I really believe strongly in this.
Oh my gosh, I was so moved.
More than answered the question,
you
seriously.
Absolutely did.
So are you adding motivational speaker to your your resume?
So something that I would love to kind of talk about a little bit is the kind of music aspect of the film. We've got, I think, a little clip that Sweet Ducky shall
Thanks, producer
provide
Ducky.
us with.
Thank you, Ducky. Please roll the tape.
My name is Nicholas Repetto, the composer of Empire Queen, The Golden Age of Magic. I booked a session in Budapest, Hungary. I loved every moment of it.
Holy shit, that sounded awesome.
That is so legit.
Oh my God.
My God, like it.
Was that
Oh
choir
my
singing
God.
in like a cathedral?
So, and
oh
forgive
my
me,
God.
I don't recall all the names. I know Nick does, and they're on our website, but that was a Budapest, Hungary orchestra. That is a choir in Maine, 35-member choir in Maine, all done during the pandemic. And Nick was there with them.
Oh, wow.
And there's a horn section in Los Angeles as well. So, and then we had a wonderful mixer over at Fox Studios, put it all together into one giant score. And again, there's over 2 hours of original music. It's unbelievable.
Well, just knowing
please release this as an OST standalone.
Yeah,
I will buy it.
That's great. Yeah, and everyone has their theme. Aura has her theme. I'm Commander Jade Cross is my character. I have my theme. Sterling has his theme, and there's the Dark Queen's theme and Lord Voss. Ooh. And so it's a beautiful score. It's
Wagnerian. Everybody's got their own themes. I love it. Yes. I absolutely love it.
I know that I'm going to love the Dark Queen's theme. I'm going to adopt it for my own.
As a musician, that must be like beyond thrilling to you to see like people inspired by what you created. And like an orchestra requires so much like,
oh my God, yes.
So much communal participation. Mm-hmm. Like, again, no one person can make a film. Right. No one person can orchestrate their own
and even the different
soundtrack.
Parts that needed to be mixed. I mean, you have musicians all over the world. You're coming together and just bringing that back into the studio to mix it together. I mean, like, if I'm, collaborating with one other musician in the same city, like, that's difficult. So I can't even imagine the logistics alone.
Yeah, that's what was amazing is how they could bring it all together, have it all sound like it's the same space, which it does. And it was just masterfully done. And I think when our executive producer, Kiki Coral, first heard it, she cried when she heard the score. It was so moving to her. And I have to say, I shared that feeling when I saw it with picture. I was like, oh my gosh, we are so lucky to be working with Nick. And he's such a great guy too. He's just a lovely person. And he's, now family, right? I want to work on everything with him. And I really hope good things happen for Nick on this as well, because, composers need to do their next movie and he's always working. I know that, but I do know that he hadn't quite done anything like our film. And I think it's why he was so keen to do it. A epic fantasy adventure period piece, of its own magical realm. He's like, sign me up for that because it's hard to get those kind of gigs.
I'm sure.
Because
especially right now when everything's Game of Thrones level, like everyone's trying to do the next Lord of the Rings.
Right, it's big. Yeah. And our film is not big. It's small, but it doesn't know it's small.
I kind of love that, like, so much of the marketing around the new Lord of the Rings TV show on Amazon is about its budget and saying it's $1 billion. It's $1 billion. It's $1 billion TV show. And kind of that setting the expectation in people's minds that, like, oh, well, then it must be absolutely unimpeachably fantastic and perfect in every way.
And then to quote the great philosopher Shania Twain, that don't impress me much.
For real. Like, then I think when people, would watch it, they would go like, all right, well, like, but why does this scene make so little sense? And like,
where's
why
that
is
budget?
The CG in this scene kind of looking a little bit rough? I think you set yourself up for more criticism when you kind of brag about like, here's the amount of money that we invested in it.
I'm so with you, ladies. I really am. I think it's a counterproductive move at that scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I really do. And you want it to cure world hunger if you're going to spend $1 billion on a movie.
Right? Yes.
It's like, come on, you guys.
It's got to do everything.
Right.
Yet if you... I mean, honestly, like as a fan, as a viewer, if I'm watching something that I know is probably low budget, like, one of my favorite TV shows, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the first seasons, especially, like the CG on that was like pennies, so low budget, but they
just rubbed pennies on their faces until they turned into bumpy vampires.
Yeah, exactly. No, I loved it because it didn't overpromise, but like they did so much with so little. And that to me as a fan, like I gave them the other like 10% they needed in my imagination to get where they were going.
I do indeed. And again, we're not able to currently reveal our budget. I will say we worked really hard with relatively small dollars and a very tight-knit crew who wore a lot of hats. A lot of hats were worn, which actually made it more fun, truthfully.
I bet.
And so I think when our final figures do come out, I think you guys will be happy with how we did what we did.
I'm excited.
I assume so. So one of the questions that I wanted to ask you kind of around like, so you mentioned that the budget for Shine on Me was $70,000, which I agree from like a if you're making a professional music video at around that time, it would have been $500,000 for like, you know, so 70,000 for me, I'm like, oh, so economical. But to many of our readers, they're going to say, oh, that's like a year's salary or 2 years salary.
Absolutely.
Which I think, like, again, there's been a lot of developments technologically in terms of the democratization of content creation where people can do more with less. But all the same, if you have like a passion and a drive and a vision for something that does require a budget, was this something that you kind of budgeted for a long time? Said like, I'm going to save up the money to do kind of what's in my head for this. Did you mentally ever negotiate with yourself and say like, I have this idea for a really cool music video, but it would be expensive. So maybe I should do something more like me standing in front of a guitar and a green screen and just playing it. Like, was that a negotiation that you entered into with yourself as a creative person?
With the Shine On Me budget, I didn't know I would spend that much. I just couldn't stop creating. In other words,
love it.
we booked the Panavision stages where we shot the green screen. Then we went out into the world. Again, it was 35 millimeter film, which then has to be telecine, which then at that time
it's so expensive.
I mean, you couldn't even buy drives back then, terabyte drives. I had to have a RAID array, which was like 9 drives all arrayed together.
Oh my God!
And it was like, oh, that was so expensive. Now it's like, oh no, I went down to Best Buy and got a 15 terabyte drive that could house all of it. But so a lot of the money,
$20, yeah.
Right. A lot of the money that I kept having to spend on the first video didn't even have to spend close to that on the second. The second, I think, I don't know the exact numbers, but it was maybe $23,000 for the second video.
Yeah.
Right. So
just
then
because
all
of
a sudden
technology
the scale
changing.
comes down.
Wow.
And with our movie,
Yeah.
those technologies, like for example, Jay Schultz is a very gifted drone pilot, and he, a lot of the film is shot on drone, and with drones you get basically dolly tracks, you get cranes, you get ladders, you get helicopters, and about 7 other things.
God.
And he's a wonderful drone pilot. So that was a really neat way for us to make the movie look so much bigger.
Yes.
And even in the music video, you see that's Jay flying around in the drone for me on the on the rock.
Love it. I love that because like I think that to me is kind of that's an example of how if you have a vision, you can figure out how would, Hollywood with $1 billion budget, how would they do this? But then you can ask yourself like, well, how do I fake it? And so many of the best films, the best music videos, the best like stories about like recording albums, they are very much around like, oh, well, we found a weird piece of metal that when you flapped it, it made a weird noise. So we use that as the sound effect.
Absolutely.
And the kind of creativity that can come from want is amazing. I think it's very underrated, like to just dive in and start doing and pay attention to everything around you. And if you can come up with a vision for what you want, like eventually you will find a way to either make it or just fake it.
Absolutely. And this is the time to do that because as you're saying, you can buy the gear for cheap. You can buy the editing equipment for cheap. You can do it all and express yourself. And then the key is just have something you feel is worth saying, right? Have something you're passionate about saying. And, so for us on this project, there's a lot of what I would call cinematic cheats. And the cheats are, we're here, but we're also doing it here. And I don't want to reveal too much about our secrets, but there's a lot of things that look really, really expensive that aren't. A lot of them.
Love it.
Yeah. And so, a lot of ways, what's expensive is traveling and putting people up in hotels and airfare and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, once you're there and you've got everybody with their gear together, then it's like, oh, this is just us in costumes saying our lines and doing whatever the action is. And that winds up being pretty cheap, relatively speaking. The costuming on the film was very fun, though. And that was an expense for sure because, 100 plus costumes for sure.
Oh, wow.
And,
Yes.
And I know that it bumps people, the mixed era aspect of Shine and that will be the movie. And the idea is, look, it's a fantasy realm. This is Ilarion. It's not a real place.
Exactly.
We don't have the
It's
same.
not like Regency England or whatever. Like,
It's fantasy.
You can
Anything
just
can
do
happen.
whatever fits with your creative vision.
That's right. So that's kind of where we're at. Is we've got our own universe, and we tried to make it period of a certain couple hundred years in world time. But hopefully, people spark with the characters and aren't so locked into. But that costume should be in that era, and this costume should be in this era.
So you were mentioning that amazing drone footage in the most recent music video, and I have to ask, where is it shot? Where you're like standing on those incredible rock formations, just rocking out?
Sure, that's actually in Chatsworth, California, which is known for its rocks, and it's been in a million movies.
Yeah.
And the only trick that we added to that is it was a very kind of washed out day. We did sky replacement as well. So the cool sky that's tracking with everything, that is a replacement.
I love that. And I love like the magic of fantasy movies. Like you can be in Oregon, in California, in Maine, all of these different places. And yet it comes together into this cohesive fantasy realm. We all know that like New Zealand is Middle Earth. And now I will forever be thinking of, the coast of Oregon and these beautiful rock formations in California. Like that's the third kingdom. That's Ara's home.
It's our world.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, so speaking of the beautiful landscape, I think we have another clip. So let's roll the tapes.
A magic map. In a way, yes. This discovery will cripple the rebellion and make our queen the most powerful of all three sisters.
So those are the sisters.
Nice.
They're all queens of their own realm. And the gentleman that's with Jay overlooking that's Matthew Burlow. Matt was another one of our pillars. He also is a cinematographer on the film and just one of my dearest friends. And he was part of the joy of making this film. So I just want to shout out to Matt because he's awesome.
I love that. And I love, every time someone appears on screen, you can tell you're talking about them with some genuine love and respect. I mean, you guys must be closer than family after this whole project.
I love my team. Yeah. And again, we're all like going, I hope we get to make another one because we had so much fun. And if we got to put more money onto the budget, we would just travel more. I would love to take the film to Iceland. I'd like to take the audience to see things that you don't see every day that are exotic and have interesting things happening in those places. And we know how to do that. We know how to do that pretty efficiently, by the way. We're pretty good at this. We're pretty good at a lean crew. Get in, get your shots, get your B-roll, get some drone footage, and get out.
Nice. That efficiency, like it must make everything so much more cohesive. Where can we see the culmination of all this brilliance? When and where can we see Empire Queen?
Well, we're doing our cast and crew screening at Warner Brothers in 2 weeks. And we're very excited about that.
Congratulations.
So
very cool.
Then we're in the process of shopping this. We actually, I feel like the goal of the picture, and it could go theatrical, although in today's market with the competition and with the limited theatrical films these days, I feel like it's a streaming picture. And I will say one thing, it actually could wind up being a series. The running time is 2 hours and 25 minutes. There's built-in breaks that are just kind of natural every 30-minute breaks with bumpers and recaps and credits on all the episodes. We would have 6 30-minute episodes. And I don't think it would detract from the flow of it. So we have 2 ways to sell the project. And truthfully, I'm open to both. I love the all-in-one, but if it wound up being a series, that could be really fun as well. And it's a very easy edit to do.
Oh my God, I would love to do like watch parties for, each episode and get everybody together and just like we used to do in college.
That's great, Piggy. And I think the goal would be, what does the distributor find the most appealing for their audiences? And, we're knocking on the doors of, Netflix and Amazon and Apple and Hulu and Disney Plus and, all of the ones that are, so popular these days. And that's something different too. That stuff didn't exist 10 years ago. And some of it not
Netflix was DVDs in the mail back when Shine On Me came out.
That's right. And some of it not even 5 years ago, with HBO Max and Disney Plus being within the last 2 years. So it's a really interesting time to be doing this. Find a way to create your own art.
Yeah, I think, this has kind of been the theme of this whole conversation we've had, is that, A, don't hesitate to make your art, and B, we're living in a time at which it has become so much easier to make that art. The barriers are so low, and I'm thrilled that means, more of the world can become just as obsessed with your work as we are.
Well, that's very nice of you. I'm always so grateful, as I've mentioned, that when people spark to the art, it means a lot to me. And I guess the one challenge will be, will people who like the music videos like the movie? Or is it a completely different audience? I'm hoping that they do. I know that everybody that enjoys the music videos is invested with their own connection to it. And so when all of a sudden my character is talking, right, and CL is talking, and Jay is talking, and we're all doing different things, and there's a lot of comedy, will that fit with people's notion of it? Or will they just go, look, that's that. And I did try very hard to integrate story elements that you see represented in the videos in the movie. It is actually a retelling in ways. There are the angels that you see in Shine. There's an angelic aspect to this movie. And so hopefully those through lines will be like, oh, I see. So you can understand my desire to have people respond to it. And I just don't know if that's going to happen.
Well, we'll reserve judgment.
That's right.
But
please be kind.
Yeah, we absolutely will.
One thing that I wanted to ask you, which is kind of the, when you make something that's in a genre that not everyone is a fan of, like some people, fantasy just leaves them cold. Fine, right. So be it. When you're making something that this is not for everyone, I think there's a lot of pressure on especially maybe less experienced creators to be people pleasers who want to appeal to the broadest possible demographic, who want everyone to like what they do, who want to have the biggest possible audience, and so kind of like moderate out everything that would feel too extreme to a general audience. I think one of the things that Piggy and I did was one of the best decisions we made as business people was we called our blog Bitches Get Riches. And there was a certain degree of people who were going to hear that name and just immediately go, no, that's not for me. And we were like, yes, right. Perfect. You are not the audience that we want. And we rejoice in driving you away early on so that we can pull in that audience who really does resonate with who we are and what we do and what we have to say. So kind of as someone who works in a genre that is not for everyone, have you ever felt that pressure to, appeal to a broader demographic, to maybe moderate yourself in your mind? Or have you always felt very firmly like, no, this is my vision, this is what I want to do, and I'm just going to do it. And if people like it, they like it. And if they don't, they don't.
Yeah, it's a great question. For all of us, right, as creators, do you try to appease basically strangers that are in your head, right, voices? Or do you do what your spirit tells you to do? Do you pursue a vision that you hold dear? And I would say, please pursue a vision that you hold dear, always, because you can't, there's no way you can always try to go, oh, I want these people to like it and these people to like it. It's like, that won't even work anyway. The truth is you have to please yourself. You have to make something that you're proud of, that you want your name on. Because if you fail and you try to please people, you're going like, well, I should have just done what I wanted to do anyway because it didn't succeed.
Yes.
So
yes.
Follow your zeal, do what you feel is authentic to who you are at this time that you're creating the art, and then let the world decide. And the world will decide. That people will find it. That's what's neat about this stuff, is your audience will find you, right? It's like Field
Your
of
audience will
Dreams.
find
If you
you.
build it, they will come.
Yes. Yes.
I
absolutely.
love it. I absolutely love it. I have to say, the best part about having an employee, shout out Ducky, is that like the first time we mentioned Dane Owens to her, she was like, okay, this is like another business thing. Should I be taking notes about this? What's going on? You guys are really talking for a long time about this person. Is he
And we're like, yes, you should be taking
And we're
notes.
like, no, he's just the foundation of our friendship. So the best part about having an employee has been seeing Ducky go from like, what's this Dane Owens thing to, oh my God, Dane Owens liked us on YouTube and like sending us texts at like 11 o'clock at night where she's like, Christina, oh my God. And CL, she liked this too. And we were just like, yes, we've converted
That's
another.
great.
But so my partner is also a gigantic fan.
Huge
and the first time that I think that you followed us back on Twitter, we were on a road trip and I was checking Twitter and I said out loud, I was like, Dane Owens is following us on Twitter. He said, what? I said, Dane Owens is following us on Twitter. And he like pantomimed driving off the road. So I have this very old note that I have saved, which was a bit of dialogue with me and my partner, which I just thought was so funny, which is, I asked him in a challenging manner, which is better, Shine On Me or Lightspeed? And he said, you cannot ask me that. One blasts you into the stratosphere and the other makes you soar. Those are two completely different feelings. And then we drove on in silence for about 2 more minutes. And then he said, is it immature of me to say shine on me? Maybe it is, but I can't change the way I feel.
That's wonderful. That makes me so happy.
So
I can hear him saying
you have
that too.
Huge fans in our household. I find a way to work one of your songs into every one of my road trip mixtapes.
That's
So
lovely.
absolutely.
Thank you for sharing your art
Thank
with us
you.
and with the world. I
Thank
hope this
you.
is fun for
It's
you.
so magical. And I'll tell you, ladies, this has been one of the thrills is the people I've gotten to meet and chat. And now I feel like we're family and like you're all coming,
Oh my
you're all
God.
coming with me.
You just made my day.
Right. So we are forever
Yes.
connected because of the art.
Listen,
Absolutely. Oh my
I'm
God.
I'm not one to criticize. I think one thing you're really missing is you have these like cool, edgy, pretty witches who are
Yes.
like witch
You need
monarchs.
a couple of bridge trolls.
I think you're missing that like Snow White bog witch element.
Yeah, we're very good
And
at
I think
bog
we could bring
witching.
that. So if you ever do any sequels, any filming, we would love to be there with like big, warty, prosthetic noses. We will get ourselves to LA. We will hitchhike the whole way. But
There
we're
are
ready.
so many people that we want to pull into the sequel. There's the Game Grumps guys and the Mega 64 guys.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
John Heder, who is Napoleon Dynamite, he and his brother Dan are really big fans of this.
Yes.
And we almost got them in the movie. In fact, it was just a scheduling thing because they were so excited
my
about it.
gosh.
So the next movie we have to...
Even if we're just like a rabble crowd, like a crowd going, yeah, that's
Right.
right. Like I would be
Fist
I'd be
bumpers.
into that. Peas and carrots.
Yeah, make it a real who's who.
Yeah. So you're part of our family now. You can't get rid of us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we're so excited for the movie. Good luck with all the distribution stuff. Like, I don't understand that, but I am rooting
It's a
for
whole
it.
other process to making a thing.
yeah.
You have to put on your sales
Yeah.
hat. Now, I've sold shows before, as we mentioned, so it's I'm okay with it. It's just everything takes longer, and there's getting people to call you back, and
Yeah.
then terms and all that stuff. But I'm very hopeful. I'm really proud of what we've done. I love my team. Everyone worked so hard, and we were very lucky. Things worked really nicely for us. So I just hope that we can get it to everybody's living rooms before you know it.
Yeah.
And I'll certainly let you know, and maybe we'll watch it together at some point.
I would love that. I would love that. Oh my God. It's so exciting.
Papers.
We will continue to blast you all over our social media to,
Oh my
build the
goodness.
family
That's
some
lovely.
more.
Thank
So,
you, ladies, so much for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Chris, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you so much.
Listeners, if you want us to answer your question, go to bitchesgetriches.com and click Ask the Bitches. After all, this podcast is listener supported. We are committed to never, ever putting our best content behind a paywall, only our worst content. So if you like what we do and you want us to keep doing it, you can support the podcast by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/bitchesgetriches. And if you need even more bitches in your life, and who could blame you, you can read our articles or follow us on social media at bitchesgetriches.com. So, Chris, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. I want our audience to know that we have officially given you a Bitches Get Riches name, which is Wolfie, and that is how you will forever be in my heart. So thank you, Wolfie.
I love it.
Is there anything else that everyone should know about where to find you and your music and your music videos?
Yeah, this will be real easy. For stuff related to the movie, there's a website. It's just empirequeenmovie.com. And then for me, which also would link you back to some of this material, it's just chrisdaneowens.com. And that's it.
Good to know.
Bitches out.